All right, I believe we are live. So good evening and good morning and good afternoon to all the Christians and the Jews and the Muslims and the atheists and the agnostics and the Hindus and the Buddhists and yes, even the Odinists who are watching us right now. I'm David Wood, your friendly neighborhood philosopher. And with me right now is Brother Rachid. Now, I know if you're an Arab, you know exactly who Brother Rachid is, but I also know that some of you who aren't Arabs don't know who Brother Rachid is. And just so you know, way back when I was getting started, in apologetics dealing with Islam, and Nabil had just converted, and we started going around speaking and so on. When you would ask people, especially Arab Christians, who they listen to, you would always hear two names. You would hear Zachariah Boutros and Rachid. Those are the two that everyone would always mention. And so it's an honor to have Brother Rachid here. Brother Rachid, why don't you give people a little introduction to who you are and what you do, and then we're going to back things up, talk about your earlier life and how you became a Christian. So what's going on now?
Well, thank you so much, Brother David. What a fired up introduction, and thank you for the nice words you said about me, and I'm just honored as well to be on your channel. Everywhere I go, people tell me also the same thing. Do you listen to Brother David Wood? Do you follow his videos? I always say, who doesn't? We always follow you, and it's amazing what you do on YouTube. I'm Rachid. My name, that's my real name, actually. That's how my dad named me. I don't say my last name just because followers of the peaceful religion might find me somewhere and make some peace with me. So I try to hide my last name. Also for the same reason, I don't want to hurt my other family members because they have the same last name, and they say you don't own that last name, so you can't use it. Mm-hmm. We share it. We all share it. So keep it private. Mm-hmm. And that's why people call me Brother Rachid. And I'm from Morocco originally. I was born and raised in Morocco, and I was there until I was 32 years, 32 years old. Then I had to leave the country. And that's a brief of what I do right now. I'm a host for one of the most famous Christian shows, apologetic show, a live calling program. We called it Daring Questions, and now it just ended after 12 years. And I'm now starting a new one, hopefully in a few coming months. And that's what I do. I'm almost like you, David, but on the Arab world. I do a lot of apologetics. I debate Muslims, and I raise so many questions about Islam. And I try to invite people to, especially Muslims, to a good dialogue.
Mm-hmm. All right, and you were showing me a book
Mm-hmm.
a few minutes ago. What's that
Yes.
about?
I had this book in Arabic and French, and now it's coming in January. Finally, I was able to translate it into English. It's called The Ideology Behind Islamic Terrorism. And because I hear a lot on the news that Islam has nothing to do with terrorism, and I just showed in this book, it's a thick book. It took me 2 years of research, and it's a summary of Islamic history and with what we go through today. So many terrorism is going around in the world, and I just point to the roots of that terrorism, where it comes from. And it's going to be available in January on Amazon and other outlets. So if you like to read about these topics, this is really, I think it's a reference when it comes to terrorism and the history of jihad.
Now, are you actually going to say that jihad has something to do with Islam?
Definitely.
Oh, okay. Well, that's actually good, because when I say something like that, people say, "Oh, it's just because I'm a racist or something like that."
Islamophobe.
Yeah. They can't say racist when you're saying it, so you're on
No.
a little bit better ground there.
No, my mom and my extended family, most of them are still Muslims, and I love them. I love Muslims everywhere, and we shouldn't be called any names if we point out to reality of facts.
Yeah, and really, it's just a sad situation that you can, if you tell people, hey, Islam has bad, false teachings that are getting people killed. They say it's because you must hate people, right? I mean, I want to be clear. When we just had another terrorist in Strasbourg got killed waging jihad for Allah. How can people say that we must hate him when we don't want him to go out and get killed, right? We don't want these terrorists to throw their lives away, slaughtering for a false god.
Plus, we are entitled, and everybody has the right to criticize any ideology, including Islam. We should not pamper Muslims, and we should not try to please them. There is a difference between people and an ideology. I can't criticize any ideology without being named or labeled in a label. People do that with Christianity all the time. Why not Islam?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And but believe it or not, there are lots of Muslims who say otherwise, right?
Right, all the time.
There is one ideology that must not be criticized. You do have a lot of people who love you over here in the chat. I can't read all of them, but if we get through your testimony, we might have time to take some questions and comments.
Sure.
But a lot of people sending you greetings from around the world. Did want to add this one very quickly. This is from Renee. She said, David, can you ask Brother Rachid if he will please make more videos in English?
I will, if you help me, David.
Yeah. You know what we could, because I was thinking, right? Because I wanted to have you on here to share your testimony with people, but I see lots of objections popping up, and I'm thinking, I would love for us to respond to these objections. So right. maybe on another live stream we'll actually go through some topics, start going through some objections and replies.
I would love to.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right, well, Brother Rachid, why don't you tell everyone more about your background, your childhood, what kind of family you grew up with, and give people a little background.
Well, I'm the second in my family. We're 7 brothers and sisters, four males and 3 females. My dad was the imam of the local mosque, and my oldest brother was born with something called cerebral palsy. So my dad couldn't start taking him to the mosque and stuff like that. So he started making me as the first child, the firstborn. He started treating me that way, at least. And he started taking me with him to the mosque at age of 4. My family was a very conservative Muslim family. My dad memorized the whole Quran, and he had students in his mosque. I still remember we always had more than 50, 60 students around, and all of them are studying the Quran. Nothing else, just the Quran. They recite, and they hear my dad reciting it, and sometimes they comment on some verses, and they try to find out what commentaries say about those verses, etc. I started learning the prayer since 4 years old, how to pray, how to do the wudu, the washing, and how to. So I was imitating my dad basically in the first years, but that's what happened, and this is a little background.
So just to be clear, you didn't come from kind of a secular Muslim background, right?
No, not at all. Actually, my grandpa was also a sheikh, we can say respected holy man in the town, because he memorized the whole Quran. And I had so many in my extended family, so many people who are considered as imams or sheikhs, people who can teach Islam.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you have a strong, loving relationship with your parents?
Yes, we were a very close family, and my dad had only one wife, believe it or not, and his brothers had different wives, but he was the only one who had only one wife until he passed away 2 years ago. And I loved my mom, I loved my dad, and actually my dad was very respected in the town. People kiss his hands because he's the imam. I always was proud of him, following him everywhere. And when people ask me what do you want to be when you grow up, I say I want to be like my dad, because I love the way people treat him, and they stop on the street and they are nice to him. They invite him in weddings. He's in the first row, and funerals as well, and he gets to speak, to give counseling to people, reconcile people who are fighting. He had so many roles in the town.
And the reason I was asking about that is because lots of times when we hear former Muslims who've left Islam and become Christians or atheists or something else, a lot of people want to understand a bit about their background. Like, did they come from a devout Muslim family, or was it more of a sort of Muslims who go to the mosque a couple times a year or something like that? And the second thing that pops up is, did they hate their parents for some reason? Like, did you grow up and your dad's beating you all the time and stuff like this? And so maybe this is how people are thinking. Maybe the reason you left Islam was because you're rebelling against your parents. Some kids rebel against their parents. So we already know here that you came from a devout Muslim background, and you had a good relationship and really looked up to your dad.
Yes.
Now, but something must have happened along the way, because here you are preaching Christianity.
An infidel.
Yeah. So something must have happened along the way. That process must have started at some point. So what started happening, and around when did it start happening?
Well, let me say that I wasn't looking for any other religion, and I was satisfied with Islam, because that's what I knew, and I was proud to be a Muslim. And my dad always taught me that all other non-Muslims, they will go to hell, and they are not, God hates them, Allah hates them. And I always was like, what's wrong with them? I mean, it's obviously Muhammad is the prophet, obviously the Quran is the book of Allah, and obviously it's the true religion. What's wrong with all these people? And I memorized 1/6 of the Quran, because the Quran is divided into, we call them ahzab. It's like big chunks of, it's 60 of them, 60 parts. So I memorized 10 of them. That's I memorized them by heart, knowing them from A to Z. And at age of 12, I had to move, because I went to school, and primary school was close to us, but middle school and high school was very far away from home, so I had to move to Casablanca. And moving from a little town to Casablanca created a little bit of spare time in my schedule, because in my town I had full schedule from school to the mosque, from mosque to home, and then it goes around the whole year like that. Even on summer vacation, I just spend the time in the mosque. I had nothing else. But moving to Casablanca, things changed. So anyway, my entertainment at night, especially during Ramadan, was a radio, a small radio. And I started tuning in to listen to anything in Arabic, just because I need to wait until late supper so I can eat. And it wasn't mandatory that I fast during Ramadan when I was 12, but it's preferable for kids at this age to start learning. At least if they don't fast the whole Ramadan, at least 1/3 or 2/3 of Ramadan is good. So like that, they prepare them for when they are 14 or 15. And so I was trying to entertain myself, and then I heard the name Yeshua, which is Jesus. But in Arabic, as a Muslim, I heard always Isa in Morocco. I never heard the word Yeshua. You hear it in Egypt, probably, among Christians, and in Jordan and Lebanon. But in Morocco, because we don't have native Christians, so we didn't have the opportunity to hear that name. So when I heard it the first time, it was a weird name. Then I stopped. You know, when you're tuning and you just hear sometimes a word or two, and then I stopped. I started tuning and focusing the channel very well, and then I heard the whole thing. It was like almost half an hour of teachings about Jesus according to the gospel, that he was the Son of God, he was crucified for our sins, and he is the Lord himself. And I was really shocked to hear all that. It was like the biggest blasphemy you can hear. And in the same time, I couldn't stop it because I was so curious to know what the host is saying. So at the end of the program, they gave an address. They said, if you have questions, write us to this address. So I took a pen and I started writing on my hand. And then when I finished, I wrote a letter, I sent it, and then a process started back and forth for 4 years, comparing Islam to Christianity, debating Christians, trying to convince them that Islam is the truth, and trying to respond to their questions as well, and trying to learn from them what they believe about Christ.
Now, this, do you remember what this group was? Was this a Christian group based in Morocco, or were they outside of Morocco and they were somehow broadcasting in Morocco?
It was a Transworld Radio, TWR, and they buy time from Monte Carlo. It's not based in Morocco, it's based in Monte Carlo in Europe. And they had a wave, and they buy that wave so they can start broadcasting, I think, for 3 hours at night for Moroccans. And it happened during the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s as well. And it was a very effective way. And the hosts were Arabs. Even though Transworld Radio is not an Arab organization, but the hosts were Arabs from Lebanon and from Egypt and from different countries, from Jordan as well. And they took nicknames, not real names. So I corresponded with different names. You don't know their pictures, you don't know their faces, you don't know their real names. They just nicknames.
And but also before we go on, I wanted to if you could explain the relevance of Isa and Yeshua, because it should be Yeshua, right?
That's right. That's the right translation. For some reason, the Quran says Isa. Until now, people try to give some explanations, but they're not satisfying so far.
Yeah. Do you have any theory about why that is?
I think there is. I still don't have any satisfying answer, as I said, but one of the reasons, probably he heard it. Muhammad heard it from some local Jews, a sect that hated to say Yeshua because it means God saves.
Yeah.
So probably they say Isa just to avoid saying that God saves, naming this man to be really bearing the name of God himself.
Yeah.
So probably that's the reason. I'm not 100% sure, but
no one is, because we weren't there and we don't actually have the record, so we just have some theories. But that's the one that I had heard about, and that perhaps perhaps some of the people around there who hated Jesus were referring to him as Isa, because that would be the Arabic for Esau.
That's right.
Who was like the enemy, and so who would
he's
give
hated.
away his promise. Yeah, so maybe they were like referring to him in this derogatory manner, and Muhammad didn't realize it, and he picks up the name. Anyway, one of the
because listen to this, we don't have even in Arab records, we don't have Abd Isa, the slave or the servant of Isa. We have the slave or the servant of Yeshua, even during the Abbasid dynasty. Mm-hmm. And we don't have Abd Isa among Christians, so which is very telling.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so you said you spent about 4 years interacting with the Christians, and so over those 4 years, it seems that you must have come around to concluding that Islam is false and Christianity was true. So, do you remember some of the things that might have started to bother you about Islam, or some of the points that you thought Christians were defending really well?
I think, let me tell you this. It was like kind of funny. I thought I'm going to end this in the first round. Islam will win, and big time. So I always recite verses, I write them down, and I send them to my friends, and they will be like, they make no sense. No, come on. It's obvious. I mean, Jesus was never crucified. Somebody else was crucified in his place. And I thought I made sense. And then they will be like, well, how are you going to respond to people, historical people who, or in history, references in history to the crucifixion? How are you going to respond to questions? Who was the guy who replaced Jesus? And when that happened? And where? All these questions, do you have answers to them? I said, sure. I'll go to commentaries and I will have all that. So when I go, I find like different versions contradicting each other, and none of them is sure. And at the end, they say, Allahu A'lam, which is God knows, or Allah knows. And I'll be, if Allah knows, then why you are saying that? Yeah. So at the end, I found I'm not really on solid ground. I'm on a shaking ground. And that started bothering me a lot, especially the crucifixion. And I found that Islam has a very weak argument, or even you can't call it argument, very weak story about what happened exactly. Was it really Jesus or somebody else? And if it's somebody else, then we have so many unanswered questions. And that changed how I look at the Quran. And I started dealing with the Quran as a text. Instead of making him a holy book, I started dealing with it as a text, as the Bible. And when I got out of that circle, I started realizing the bad things that Muhammad did, the negative things on the biography of Muhammad. I started rereading Islam with a different mind, different perspective. And that opened my mind to so many things.
And so, at what point did you become a Christian?
I'm not like those guys who can remember exactly the hour, the minute, the day, but I was gradually leaving Islam and becoming more Christian. It took me around the end of my 16th year and beginning of 17. It took me several months to make that transition. I remember sometimes like during certain periods, I'm hesitating to leave Islam, but in the same time, my mind is so convinced that Christianity is the truth. But you know how we were raised to love Islam. It was something very dear to our hearts. And leaving it and knowing all the consequences that will come after that is really something I struggled with big time. And at the end, I just left Islam, I sent a letter to my friends in Monte Carlo telling them that I believe I'm a Christian now.
Mm-hmm. And so let's back up as far as consequences in general in Morocco. Now, Morocco's not like Saudi Arabia or
Right.
Afghanistan or something like that.
True.
So apart from you, what would it look like for a Muslim to become a Christian there? It's probably you're not going to get killed or something, right?
Well, Morocco changed over time. We are talking when I'm talking about my story, that was at the end of '89, beginning '90, mm-hmm. and now it's 28 years later. Mm-hmm. So things really changed in a dramatic way. I mean, Morocco improved a lot when it comes to that. It still is not totally open, but it changed a lot. Mm-hmm. Back then, it was really hard. I mean, I heard stories of Christians arrested, mm-hmm. and Christians in jail, Christians persecuted in different ways. Yeah, my father-in-law, who's my father-in-law right now, he wasn't my father-in-law back then. Mm-hmm. He was in jail for his faith. Mm-hmm. And I have known others in Morocco, they were in jail for their faith. And
so would this have been people getting locked up for converting or for preaching, or what basis was there for locking them up?
Just there's nothing in the law that says in Moroccan law. This is the irony. Morocco mm-hmm. borrowed a lot of his law from France. Mm-hmm. And it's mixed with Sharia and French law. Mm-hmm. And when they came to the law, they didn't find anything that will say a Moroccan, when converts to Christianity, he should be punished. There is nothing in law, but they find ways around it. For example, my father-in-law, he was judged based on an article in the law that says whoever was a Muslim and was caught breaking Ramadan, he should be jailed for 6 months and paying a fine for so and so. So the judge asked him, did you fast last Ramadan? He said no. So you're admitting that you broke Ramadan? Yes. And then you go to jail for that. So they find ways.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. Yeah. So you contacted your friends, told them that you're no longer a Muslim, you're a Christian. Now, yeah. I've seen many times about how difficult this can be to, tell the family, tell the parents.
Yeah.
I saw this with Nabil. He really, really didn't want to tell his parents. Yeah. He even wanted to get baptized and stuff, not tell his parents. His parents actually found out when they came over to his apartment and he wasn't there, and they saw on his computer that I was going to be baptizing him that weekend. So that that's how his parents found out. He really didn't want to tell them. So how did that play out with you?
It's almost the same story repeated. I tried to hide it for several months, and I was living like two lives. One of them, because those friends, they sent my name to a missionary, an American missionary who lived in Morocco, and they told him about me. So he contacted me through a letter. He sent me a letter, and he sent me his phone number, home phone number. And then I called him, and then we met, and then he introduced me to Moroccans like me, who are almost the same age and studying through TWR again, and almost we have identical stories. So when I started making new friends and going every Sunday to those secret meetings in one of the houses in Casablanca, and coming back at a certain time, and I'm not going to the mosque though in my prayers, and all my habits started changing. So family members noticed. And remember, I was staying with my uncle because he's the one who lives in Casablanca, not my dad. And then my cousins told my mom. And when my cousins told my mom made a meeting, and she wanted to prove them wrong, that I'm not really, because for us in Morocco, it's not clear. Christianity is not clear. They will say he became Zionist, he became a Jew, he became an infidel, and it's all mixed together in the same pot. So they told her all those things, and she said, "No, no, no, no. Rashid is very wise. He wouldn't do anything bad, and he knows what he's doing. And I'll prove that you are just trying to make his reputation bad and make him look bad in front of me. He's not like that. Stop those things." So when I came, she asked me in front of them, "Are you really a Christian, Muslim? What are you?" And I was shocked because I wasn't expecting it. Mm-hmm. And then I said, "Well, it's not for you to know what I believe. It's between me and God." And then said, "Well, just say Shahada to prove that they are wrong. Just say Shahada." And in 10 seconds, my mind was racing because one side of me says that I should say it to save myself, and another one says no. You will be living as a hypocrite, a different life. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Mom, I can't say it." And the minute I said that, you know what it means for Muslims. If you can't say it, then you are not a Muslim. And my mom started crying, and people around me, they started spitting on me and saying names, calling me names, and "Get out of here," and "You embarrassed your dad. Now you brought shame to the whole family. And leave us. Go to your Christian friends, your infidel friends, and leave. We don't want to see you." So I was shocked. To be honest, I wasn't expecting that. Mm-hmm. I was expecting that they will be a little bit mad, but it wouldn't be that much because I knew how all my family, even extended family members, they loved me so much. I was loved by most of them. I had no problems with anybody. So I thought our relationship is stronger than anything, but it turned out I was really wrong. So I had to leave the family, and I lived almost 2 years homeless, without a family, without a shelter, without food, without anything.
And so you're going around homeless for 2 years?
Yes, just friends, spending time with friends, and anyone that sometimes just random people I meet, I spend time with them. I say, "Hey, I don't have a place." And I remember days nights when I spent the whole night in the street, just sleeping in a corner, homeless. And I went sometimes to missionaries. They provided shelter for a week, 2 weeks, and one of them hosted me for a few months. And then I go from a place to another. I didn't have any place.
So did you ever stop to think, "Hey, what's going on here, Lord? Like, I did the right thing. I told people that I believe in you, and now look at what's going on."
I did that, to be honest. I had my gospel with me, and I was wandering in the streets of Casablanca and sometimes in the parks and just crying and praying. And I said, "Lord, I don't understand. Mm-hmm. I don't understand this. Can you send me something that will explain to me why I'm going through this?" And also when I went to prayer meetings with my friends, so many of them they sympathized with me, but so many of them, they are living with their families, mm-hmm. and they cannot help me in any way. And if they tell them his parents and his family kicked him out because of his faith, that would be another problem. Mm-hmm. But and many of them, they were hiding their faith from their families as well. So they couldn't help much. But when I asked the question why this is happening to me, and they will be like, "Just have faith in the Lord, and you will go through it, and you will come out strong." And actually, that's what happened. Now, when I look back, those were the best 2 years in my life, and when it comes to prayer and talking to God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was similar for me, because I became a Christian in jail, and from an atheist background, and then I had several more years to serve in prison, and people think about that. Oh my goodness, prison, that's like an awful place. But in
That's
terms
right.
of like developing spiritually and reading the Bible and fellowshipping with other Christian brothers and having accountability and so on, that was the best Christian period in my life, right? Because,
Yeah. It's an irony.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so interesting. So well, what happened after that 2 years that changed things?
The missionary who was my first contact saw that my life was deteriorating. Basically, I left school and I couldn't provide for myself, and I was really just going down. And he was like, Rachid, you're a bright kid and you have a future, and you need a shelter, you need a family. Why don't you come and live with me? You'll be like one of my kids, and we'll take it from there. And I couldn't believe my ears when I heard it. I told him, are you serious? Mm-hmm. He was, yes, just come and live with my family, and we will try to help as much as we can. So I went there, and that's where I learned my English.
Oh.
So you can't blame him for my mistakes. And he helped me a lot, and he said, you need to go back to school, you need to start looking for a job as well, and you need to stand on your feet. And the Lord just put us in your way, so probably this is a sign from the Lord that you need to continue your career, your path, your growth and faith and everything. And I stayed with him for 3 years.
Stayed with the Christian missionary for 3 years, and so
yes.
Did you finish school during this time?
I finished school. I even found temporary jobs here and there. I was able to get some money, and later on I found a part-time job as an accountant. And I started, my life started looking better, and I reached out again to my family, and I started connecting with my brothers and sisters, and I visited a few times and told my mom that I love you, and no matter what, and I will come, and my relationship started getting a little bit, when it dries first and it becomes a little bit softer later, it became really softer over time.
Mm-hmm. And so, what happened after those 3 years then?
I established my life, and I got married. I moved to an apartment,
a small
apartment.
Hang on. You got to back up there. You got married. Now that's I've seen lots. I've seen when now you married a Christian woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now Christian Moroccan woman.
Yeah, I've seen the families of Muslims who leave Islam and become Christians, and the family is really hoping that that their son or daughter will return to Islam. And that can be part of the reason for shunning the person, right? Is to put all kinds of pressure on the person so that you learn your lesson, you learn your mistake, and you'll eventually realize, no, I need to be with my family, so I need to come back to Islam. And so there are different ways that this happens. Like basically, you have the families that will shun the person, and then you have the families where they like take you around to all these different Muslim scholars who are supposed to convert you back to Islam. Like Nabil's dad did that with him. He was taking him to people in different parts of the world, Muslim scholars who were supposed to show him that Islam was true. But the goal is really to get the son or the daughter to return to Islam. But then once that son or daughter then says, hey, I'm going out and getting married, and I'm marrying a Christian, that can be very difficult for the family because they start to lose hope, right? They were hopeful before. They had a lot of hope. Yeah. I really hope that my son or daughter is going to come back to Islam. But now, wait a minute. Now you're going off and you're going to get another family, a Christian family. It's going to be much more difficult for you to come back to Islam. So what was your family's reaction there?
Let me tell you first, it's hard for an MBB. We call them MBBs, Muslim background believer.
You're about to say Moroccan background believer.
Exactly, Moroccan background believer. It goes both ways, by the way. But it's hard for them, baby, to find a wife, a Christian wife in Morocco. Imagine how hard it is for a boy to become a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
It's even harder for a female to convert to Christianity. And I was able to live homeless, but imagine a girl. It will be like impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard for us young guys to find girls that are willing to have a family and stuff like that. So there were few girls among us.
Yeah, I just went ahead and looked it up because I was wondering, but I clicked on Morocco, and the Muslim population of Morocco is over 99%, and everything else makes up less than 1% of the population. So everything else that's there besides Islam, less than 1% of the population. So yeah, gonna be hard finding someone there.
Yeah, it's very hard, very hard. You can't find a Christian wife there. So as soon as I saw this beautiful girl, and her parents are Christians, and she grew up in a Christian family. When she was 3 years old, her dad and mom, they became Christians, and as I said, her dad went to jail for that. So she grew up knowing what suffering for Christ means. And anyway, when I saw her, I just said, hey, can we start talking, and can we start corresponding? Actually, back then, no iPads, no messages, no WhatsApp,
letters.
Nothing.
Kids these days don't even remember. You had to write something and fold it up and stick it in an envelope, and
Yeah. So anyway, she said, well, sure, we can, I give you the address, and then, we can start corresponding. And then, anyway, when time came to, marry her, I just went to my mom and I said, hey, I found, a girl, and, we like each other. We want to get married. And she was, she had two problems. First, she asked me, is she like you? Means she's Christian. Mm-hmm. And I said, yes. And she was like, why? You should, there are many girls, Muslim girls around, cousins. We have girls in our family, because it's not something bad to marry your cousin in Morocco. And anyway, I said, no, Mom, because I'm looking for somebody who will understand me. And we are on the same page. She said, but she's kafra, she's like infidel. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, that shouldn't be a problem for you, because I am an infidel. She will be an infidel. It's good. We will have infidel kids, and at least we are in harmony. We're not fighting each other. We are, we love each other as infidels. Is that good? And she was like, no, it's not good. And I said, where is she from? Is she an Arab or Berber? I said, she's Berber. Because we have this, Berbers in Morocco are the original people. Mm-hmm. And Arabs came with Islam in the 7th century, and they invaded the land, and they brought Islam, and they Arabized the whole Morocco, actually. Mm-hmm. And she said, Berber and Christian? It's like twice the problem. It's very difficult. But anyway, my family accepted that they will go with me, and we will do a wedding, and we will do it traditionally. And that's what we did. Of course, my family hoped that one day I will go back to Islam. But as you said, when they saw me getting married, a Christian woman, and they met her parents, they started changing their mind.
Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I mean, even for people who don't believe in Islam and have no sympathy for Muhammad, we can be sympathetic towards, mothers and fathers, because we do know those kinds of feelings. And, just when you're talking about your mom saying, hey, but there are plenty of Muslim women. That reminded me of Nabil. It's with his mom trying to lure him, because they tried everything to lure him back to Islam. They were trying to show him different scholars and so on who were going to give him great arguments and so on. That didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
They actually got scared of him. But then it was, hey, if you convert back to Islam, I can get you a really beautiful girl from Pakistan. And his mom said that to him once, and Nabil goes, yeah, you could get me 4 beautiful women from Pakistan. And she didn't like that very much. But so by the way, the Berbers, people in the West generally aren't familiar with some of these groups. I believe Augustine or Saint Augustine, as some people say, was a Berber, right?
Yes, Saint Augustine was a Berber. They call him the Augustine of Hippo. Hippo is a place in Algeria right now, what we call it Algeria right now. Back then there was no Algeria or Tunisia or Morocco. It was just North Africa. Mm-hmm. And Tertullian, the guy who coined the term triunity, mm-hmm. He's a Berber, and also Cyprian is a Berber, because used to be a very strong church in Carthage. Carthage mm-hmm. is what we call it Tunisia today, mm-hmm. and they were people who really they were fathers of the faith there. Mm-hmm. And Simon of Cyrene is from North Africa, and they said from Libya. Most likely he could be a Berber. People are not sure, but he could be a Berber. So there are many Berber figures in history, but when Islam came, it just wiped out Christianity from North Africa, from Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia and Libya.
Mm-hmm. Now, so your wife's parents, were Muslims.
Yes,
and she was already born, and she was a toddler when they converted and became Christians.
True.
And so they were already husband and wife who were...
Yes, they were married, they had kids, and then they met some missionaries, and then they heard the gospel, and they loved Jesus, and they said, we want to be Christians. And they paid a price for that, a big one. Mm-hmm. And they converted, and back then it was the King Hassan II. King Hassan II actually wanted to execute the Baha'is, and the lawyer told my father-in-law, he said, one of the options probably will be executed, because Hassan II doesn't play with faith. He's the prince of believers, we call him, and he's a descendant of Muhammad. So if you reject Islam, means like you're insulting himself, the king. His Majesty. So you should realize what you are doing here. And he said, I don't understand all that. All what I understand, I found the truth and I'm following it. And they took him to jail, but God had mercy on him, and he was released after 6 months.
Wow. Well, that's I'm just thinking of it in terms of how all of these awesome things kind of work together, in terms of the missionaries who are preaching, and but also just people who are broadcasting things on the radio, and that these reach people in different ways, and then you ended up after becoming a Christian, because you started listening to people preaching on the radio, end up marrying a woman was a Christian after her parents converted, because missionaries are working there. So it's really cool that there are lots of people who are doing awesome work in the world like that, and it's cool because people.
And you know what, David? Just one little thing. The missionaries preached the gospel to my father-in-law. They sacrificed their whole life.
One second, Rachid. You're breaking up a little bit, so let's give the internet a couple seconds to go back. Okay. All right, go ahead again. You said the missionaries who
went and preached. My father-in-law. They went to Berber villages, which are far away from the center of civilization in Morocco, from far away from Casablanca, far away from other places. And they sacrificed their whole life. They just stayed there, and they have like a carpenter place, and they teach kids something to do, like to be carpenters or to be a handiwork, and they teach them some songs in the Bible with it, and they probably brought few people to Christ, 3, 4, something like that, but they were happy. It's a very good investment for them, and I mean, I'm very thankful for people like that.
Well, it's awesome because most of these people will never hear about, right? They're not getting any worldly recognition.
Any credit.
And,
no, they're not getting any credit for it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome. Now we have to. We got about 10 minutes left. So you get a wife, you get married, but obviously you end up over here and end up doing broadcasting and so on. So when did you decide to leave Morocco, and what was the reason?
Well, I left Morocco because for the time I was married, we started having a house church in our home, and we started having meetings, and I started having activities with Muslim background believers in Morocco and organizing baptisms, Bible schools, and smuggling Bibles through Spain to Morocco, distribution inside the country. And I was doing it, everything was underground. And then for years, imagine since I got baptized in 94 and I got married in 97, and then until 2005. So that's, if you get it from my marriage until 2005, is 8 years. And we were doing that successfully in Morocco. And then suddenly the police started finding out, and they started interrogating me, and people come into my house, and secret services, and my life started going upside down after that. So I had to leave. I had to make a decision. My wife was pregnant, and I started getting into trouble for my activities and my faith. And they literally told me, if you don't stop, we'll make you stop. And it will not be through what do you think? It will be something else. We can do anything. They actually warned me that they can put drugs in my office and blame me for having drugs or something like that. So I started being afraid of anything around me. I lost that confidence and that trust, and I started caring for bothered. Probably anything can happen to me. And even cars, when a car is following me, I think they are going to harm me. They are going to do something. They are going to make an accident. All kind of bad thoughts started coming to my mind, so we decided to leave Morocco.
And how did that work exactly? I mean, you can't just go get on a plane and suddenly you're, you know.
No. I had a sister living abroad, and she became a believer. She had a different story through a friend of mine who's an Egyptian. And then I had, because I had a company in Morocco, I started a little business, and you can register it as a LLC. And I did that, and I had people working for me. So it's easy to get a visa if you have an LLC in Morocco back then. And I traveled to Europe, and actually I traveled to the U.S. also, and 25 other countries back then without any problems. Mm-hmm. And I never thought of leaving Morocco. And but I had a visa on my passport. I just when it was the right time, I left.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of amazing, right? Because you know, there are situations where if you're being persecuted, you would want to stay in the area and deal with it and continue to reach people and maybe even pay the ultimate price. There are situations and people who would be called to do that. But you know, you're married and you have a wife and child, and there are times when you get out of there. There are times when you get out of there. And what's really amazing is you've got people who are threatening you and intimidating you, and then your reaction was to go west, and yet the way that turned out is you ended up being able to reach people around the globe with
Yes.
telling people about Islam, the facts about Islam, and also sharing the gospel with people around the world. And I know there are tons of people now in Morocco who know who you are and who watch your messages. And so that's just amazing that people think, aha, we're gonna get him. We're gonna get this guy who's smuggling Bibles and stuff. And then you leave and they think, ha, we got him. And then a few years later, they start hearing about you again.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing.
Yeah. That's really awesome stuff. So how did you get involved in ministry over here? Because I mean, if you're just if you're moving over here, moving to the United States, it's how do you then go to broadcasting around the world?
First of all, just to confirm what you were saying, I was between two things: stay in Morocco or leave. I was struggling with that idea for a few months, and to make that decision was not easy. I was, am I a coward? I'm going to leave, or should I face my fate, or I have other options? I was torn between two feelings. One of them tells me to leave, and one of them tells me to stay. And at the end, I just made that decision. But my heart stayed in Morocco when I left. I was crying because we had a ministry, I had a business, and we had things. And then suddenly you just start from scratch, and you start with nothing, and then in your life it just torn apart. And when I left, just a few weeks later, I had my son, my first son, after 8 years of waiting. And you start thinking about it. I left Morocco. I left a Muslim country. I don't have to deal with anything. Then this friend of mine, who have known me for years, and he knew that I was active and I write stuff under nicknames on the internet, and he said, why don't you join us on a channel, and we are doing this broadcasting, and you can say the same thing that you write, you can say it on TV. And I was again torn between two things. I just started my life, I just have a son, I don't want to get into another trouble. But again, reading the book of Acts, reading how people sacrifice their lives for their faith. And I know there is a price. I know they will probably look for me to kill me. I know they will, some people, they will hate me and they will insult me, threaten me. But we cannot preach the gospel to Muslims without going through that. We have to take it seriously. And if we don't do it, who's going to do it? So I came to that decision. I said, I'm going to do it with, of course, after consulting and praying and asking different people, including those the closest to me.
And so here you are now with a ministry around the world, sharing the gospel and teaching people about Islam. We do want to wrap it up here, but we have about 800 people in the chat who are watching, and there are plenty of Muslims here, and some of them really don't like you. What words do you have for the Muslims who are watching right now?
I just want to tell them to try to look at things, get out of your Islam and look at things from a different angle. I love Muslims, and I love all people, all kinds, but specifically Muslims. As I said, so many in my family members are still Muslims, and the Lord loves them as well. There is a difference between criticizing a set of doctrines and loving people. So you have to separate yourself from Islam. Islam is not you. Your identity is not Islam. God loves you. I love you. I'm sure that David loves you. And so many Christians, actually I have seen so many churches during Ramadan, they prayed 30 days for the Muslim world. They don't hear these things. They think that Christians are just trying to convert them, get them out of their religion. And they are like conspiracy theories. They are conspiring against them with the Jews. That's the idea that Islam put in our head, and it kind of shut the door in front of every critical thinking. Just get out of all that and look at things from a different angle. You will see it clearly. Muhammad is not a prophet from God. Islam is not the way to God, and Jesus Christ is. So when you get out of that and you see it clearly, you will understand what I'm doing and what David is doing. Is not to hurt you, actually is to help you get out. People helped me through those broadcasting to get out of Islam, and I'm so thankful to TWR because they broadcasted those programs and they helped me. I'm so thankful to those missionaries who helped me through my struggle. And I'm so thankful for those missionaries who preached the gospel to my in-laws. And I actually, if I tell you how many stories of Muslims when I meet them in different countries around the world, so many of them, they just hug me and cry and they say, sorry, forgive us, because we hated you, we insulted you, we threatened you, and we hated even seeing your face. But now we're so thankful that you did this because you saved us, literally.
Well, that is awesome, and I do think it's interesting that you were reached with the gospel by radio, but now in our time we have the internet, which is you can reach far more people far more quickly, and yes. It's amazing that that's what you ended up doing when that's how you were reached with the gospel, and so everyone, we do really live in amazing times right now. If you want to reach Muslims with the gospel, there is no better time in history to reach Muslims with the gospel. True. Because we have the means to do it on an unprecedented scale. 14 centuries worth of Christians couldn't have dreamed about the opportunities that we have right now to reach Muslims with the gospel. And I know there were tons of questions over there for Brother Rachid, but for those who weren't familiar with him, I wanted to give him all the time he needed to share his testimony, so that you know who he is for the future. But he's already agreed to come back on and to have some discussions and make some English videos here. So we'll have him back on as soon as he's free, and we'll go through some interesting topics about the Quran, about scientific issues in the Quran. I'm saying that because there were Muslims over there bringing that up. And so we'd be happy to go through those. We could pull the sources up on the screen, have those discussions. Thank you, Brother Rachid, for joining me and joining us here. And
thank you so much, David. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for what you are doing, and thank you for all the viewers who are watching us, and thank you for everybody, Muslims, Christians, all kind of people. Thank you so much.
Oh, yes, wonderful, and we will certainly have you back. And by the way, for those of you who want to follow Brother Rachid on Twitter or Facebook, support him on Patreon, all of his links are down there in the description box. So don't leave without clicking something so that he can keep you up to date on what he's doing. And again, he'll be back soon. God bless everyone. See you next time.
God bless you.